Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is An. I'm one of the program managers with PlanStreet. Um, I have in today's presentation, Josh Reed. He will be assisting me and, focusing on the forms, adding custom fields. And Brian Eads will also be joining us as one of the panelists. The purpose of today's webinar is to showcase the basic functionality of the product, how the intake process works in PlanStreet, how can you automate your intake or wait list, create new cases, how will the services provided in terms of different programs and so on be tracked and managed in PlanStreet. And then Brian will also briefly highlight on our grants management, which is a new functionality in the product, grants and donor management. Along with, if we have time, we can go into attendance and reporting and so forth. Yes, the recording of this webinar, we will be sharing a link for the recording with everyone. If you have any questions during the webinar, there is a Q&A section here, and you can feel free to ask any questions. Either we'll respond directly to you, or if others can benefit, then we'll give a live response to your question. So there is a Q&A session, Q&A option there for everyone to ask questions during the webinar. Okay, let me just see if I can just give us a minute or two and we'll just get started. I'm just thinking if Brian can join in and then we'll get started. Josh, can you hear me? You're on mute.
I can hear you, Mohan. Sorry.
Okay, cool. And also the share functionality is available with you once your turn comes in for the forms. And if you want to chip in anytime during the webinar, feel free to do that, add anything and so forth.
Sure,
once
absolutely.
Brian joins in, then we'll enable him as a panelist as well so that he can also contribute. I think what I'll do is for everyone's time to go in and share my screen, and we can just talk about a little bit overview of the product. So we may have some people that are already existing customers, and it'll be a good point for them to just a recap on some of the features that exist or new ones, and the prospect customers that are attending today or will receive the webinar recording will also have the opportunity to to reflect back on that. Let me go back and see if we have, so we have two Josh.
Brian was having an issue with the link getting into the webinar on, and so I sent him the link, and apparently that is a specific link to me, so that's why you see two Joshes.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. For some reason, when I did it, it kept telling me that it was an invalid.
All right.
That it was invalid.
No problem. So you both can share the screen as soon as you want to contribute something or show, or just feel free to chip in. I'm just going to get started and focus on the initial intake part, and then I think talking about forms functionality and custom fields and how they show up in the reporting, I think that's pretty key as well. Think I'm logging in, and I think from an organization's perspective, roles and permissions are pretty key. So once you log in the system based on your roles and permissions, you'll be able to see the number of clients, either cases they assign to you or the ones you have permission to work on. They would be visible in the active screen here. So this particular page where I'm on right now, that's accessed through the cases grid tab, which from my perspective is a core case management area. On our menu on the left side, there are a lot of other modules which if they are relevant to your organization, you can utilize them, or you can always turn them off from the administration. If you're an existing customer and you have any specific question related to your organization or your data, you can always ask that question and we will get back to you individually. So in the cases grid, excuse me, we have active cases, we have archived, and we have applicants. Applicants typically, is used as a wait list, or people who have applied either from your website and they show up as an applicant in the system, or you can also create applicants from within the system as well. But anytime an active case is no longer active, is no longer a customer, you can always go in and archive them, and they move into the archived database. If that person comes back or into another program or the same program after a while, you can always go back and unarchive them and move them into the active client database. Both, including applicants, everything is reportable. You can filter out from the reports, whether you're looking at active clients, archived, or applicants. The way applicants work, if they are created from external source, like from your website, through a referral form, or you can send a link to somebody via email or text message. And if that comes back, as an applicant, then you have an opportunity to go in, do your due diligence, your assessment on that particular case. And if that's a good fit, you can mark them publish and move them into the active cases, or archive them into the archived database. Again, even as an applicant, it has full access to a case file where you can store documents, you can fill up any forms and so forth. The only difference is that this particular person has not really been enrolled into any particular program. So you can capture all the details here, and for those that are good fit, you can move them into an active cases list. This particular grid that you see here, these columns, they basically are dependent upon your intake form. Whatever fields you'll set up on your intake form, you have the ability to show that as a column, which is very handy, because then you can go in and you can filter that out, apply multiple filters on this grid and so forth, filter out your data for your day-to-day basis requirements, and you can export that out as well. We'll go into further details into views. You can set up multiple views, different types of views for the type of information you want to see and so forth. I will go in and click add and create a new case in the system. This is if I'm creating a new active case from within the system itself, like you got an Excel file, a paper file, or the client walked in, or somebody's over the phone, then you can go in and fill up this form, and this will create a file or a record in the system for that particular person. Now this form, and I don't want to go into a lot of form development because that's what Josh will share with you, but all this form can be set up as a custom form. You can share your existing intake form and we will basically set it up for you. Or you can use any of our given templates for different programs. So here, what I've done is I've created one master intake form where I have these multiple programs, set it up and so forth. So if you're a shelter home, you select a particular program and the entire form changes. If you're a sobering center, you can select that and the entire form changes accordingly and so forth. All the fields in this particular form are reportable. You can, you can basically set up these fields and change them as you go along as well. Just got to be careful of the fact that once you capture data on some of the fields, and you got to make sure when you replace them, the data is available for you to use. What I'm going to do is go in and create a new case called Andrew Smith and Andy Smith. And Andy could be in person or over the phone. And what you can do is capture information. We have this street address can be picked up from our Google API. If you want to utilize that, put in your for accurate addresses, you can basically use that, or you can set up your own custom fields in this section if you want to capture address in a different shape or form. Similarly, you can set up multiple owners of a particular case. Owner is somebody who has complete access of that case file, somebody that can go in, allocate resources, change programs, and so forth for that particular person. Also, if you're looking to scale, you can set up multiple teams in our system, and then be able to track and assign permissions and clients as per different teams and so forth. Category is also pretty handy. You can set up different categories, could be used for programs, could be just to categorize different clients in different areas and so forth and so on. And if you want to refer somebody out completely as a case file, you could also use our donor functionality, which basically the label can be changed to donor or to referral or agency. And then you can just choose the agency that you're referring the client out to. You can fill up all the other information, click save, and then we'll have a case file created for Andy Smith. This case file consists of these tabs on the top. The most important one of the two are the case detail, where you have all the demographic, health, wealth, all that type of information available for a client, which you can go in, modify, edit, save at any given time. You can capture as much detail as you want in the case details section. But in order to provide services are typically provided on the case board, where what we do is we set up a step-by-step workflow of your program or programs. Each column could be a specific program, or it basically you could have a different template for each program as well. What this basically board that I've set it up for you does is that under victim services, there are a bunch of services that you have as an organization, you have the capability to apply and serve your customers. So what we do is we pre-configure them at the template level. You can add, edit, and delete those services anytime you want, and they show up in real time on the board. Here I've got a couple of more services I've added in this section. In education, Andy needs help with practical tools and health concerns. And this basically 6 services as a caseworker, I think is a good fit for Andy. Now I'll go in and say, for example, in-person support. I'll click on that, and that opens up the detailed case management performa for in-person support. I can go in, mark that as in progress. I can even apply a grant if you're doing grant tracking in there, and Brian will show you in more detail. If you don't want to track any expenses, any funds dispersed, you don't have to. You can hide the field from this section here as well, and that field will disappear from this particular page. You can set up a start date, end date of a service. You could have multiple people assigned on a particular service activity. You can have goals and checklists, set it up in there. You can cross them off if they're done. And most importantly, you can basically capture notes. So you can just go in and type in as much information as you want and publish that as a note. It gets published with date and timestamp. You can also do time tracking against case notes as well if you want to. If not, you can just keep punching in notes and you can just basically publish them out. These case notes, keep in mind, yes, they are related to Andy, but they are specifically for in-person support so that you can categorize even your case notes. If any forms need to be filled up at this stage, say an authorization form was not filled initially, the form, if it's created in our system, shows up like that. You can save and submit, and this form gets submitted along with a particular case file. Any documents you want to upload, you can click on that and say, I want to upload a particular document. And those documents basically say, for example, this particular file is uploaded in there. I click save, and we've made progress on a particular service activity, which is in-person support. This shows in progress. This has goals and checklists crossed off, and you can move on from one service to the other and so forth. So this particular case services case board helps you capture case notes, track the progress of all the services you're providing, track the progress of the programs that these services are being provided under. You can track the start date, end date, documents, comments and so forth, anything that you want to service either being provided in-house or being outsourced to a different client, you could basically track that. From here, everything, the next tabs, I call them the storage tabs. You go to forms, that's where all the forms would show up that you have filled up. So your 2 views available. You can go in, fill up new forms. They'll open up for you either to send it out to a client via email, text message, or you can just save and submit. If you do that, then I have a draft form saved and so on. Similarly, all the client notes, they go into this note section there where you can go and filter that out by activity, by program, or by date range and so forth. You can export that to Excel and PDF. So the board helps you visualize the services you're providing, track the status of those services and who being provided, so you can actually track the outcome and how much impact you're making in terms of providing these services. All that can be done here. And case file is where you capture all the basic information that you had set it up in intake and referral and so forth. So this is what a case file would look like. You can upload photographs for pictures for the clients and so forth. If that helps you identify, you go back and you basically go to your grid and you click on the grid, that opens up the case file and you can start serving your clients and so on. There are a lot more details. You can go in and do multiple intakes, enroll people in multiple programs and so forth. Any questions on this stage? I just wanted to give you an overview of basic how to create a case, how to set up a case board and provide services to clients. Any questions at this stage, please feel free to ask and we'll be able to answer those questions. Okay. So if you have a question, you will have to type the question in. Okay. So the question is, when sent externally, can you still edit and work on that? I assume you're referring to forms. If you are referring to forms, a case, send externally, can you say? Yes, absolutely. So if you are referring a case to third party, it absolutely depends on your workflow. If you want to do a partial, like some services provided in-house and some outsourced, you can do that as well. But sending somebody externally does not stop you from modifying and updating the statuses and so forth. By the way, we also have an agency portal. If you want to allow an external agency to update the cases themselves, that option also exists. But you can also go in those case files who are externally referred to, and you can update those cases and so forth as well. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to pass on to Josh to show the capability of the forms and custom fields that you can set up in forms and intake and so forth. So Josh, over to you.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay now?
Sure.
All right. So forms in the system is used to accomplish a couple different things. Some people use forms in the system to collect data. Other people use forms in the system for things like consent agreements, service agreements, things like that. I'll share my screen here and show you a couple examples. Here you can see this is an example of like a consent service agreement that somebody's put together. You can use the form tool. We can help you develop these. We also provide form training where we will show you all how to create your own forms and edit your own forms. So you will be able to go through and make changes as you need to. But this is a simple consent and service agreement where you can issue a statement here of content where you're explaining something to someone, have them sign off on it, date it, save it against the case file so that you have a record of that. You can fill out service plans, eviction plan. Like this is a eviction prevention plan. There's different types of forms like this where people are looking to either establish a plan for a client, or they're collecting data for them. There's all sorts of different ways that we can capture information. Using the form generation tool, we can capture information through text fields and drop downs, text areas, can lay them out in several different ways. We provide 5 forms as part of your signing up with us. We do those for you, and we also offer those services as well if you need more. We also, like I mentioned before, provide the form training so that we can show you how to do it. So the forms are used in conjunction with the case to, like I say, either you're collecting data that can be reported against, you're using it to store information. Forms are different than documents. Documents are things like PDFs and things that are uploaded against the case file. Forms are ways where you're actually collecting information that can be reported against. Documents are just files for reference. Forms can be printed, emailed, texted, sent out. They can be filled out externally and then brought back into the system. Let's see, I need to click back. Why does it keep going to that screen? I'm trying to think. The intake itself is an actual form. That's something that we work with you to build, as On went over there a little bit. We build that for you. That's something that it's a process where you send over your intake and we work that through and then work with you to make changes and updates to it. There's not a whole lot of limit on what we can do with the form. We kind of get creative depending on what your needs are. There's, like I said, there's different ways to format and stuff. So every client is different. Every organization has different needs. Our form tool allows us to be flexible in how we collect things and use that information against the case.
So Josh, if we go into form generation and let's try and drag and drop some of these fields and see what options we have available there.
Well, for a quick crash course, we always have to start with a container here, but you basically, the form creation is as simple as just dragging. You pick out which, like if you're looking to capture a name, then you're going to use a text field. It's going to capture alphanumeric information. You're going to label. It can be first name, last name, name in general. It's going to add that text field onto the screen here that will allow them to type in the information and collect it. We have tools in the program that we call, that's part of the layout functions here. You can drag columns out so you can organize the screen in ways that you want. So you can, instead of having a name field across the top, you can drag it and make it part of a column. So now it doesn't expand all the way across. I can have this name field if I wanted to show up on the right side. I can have it, drag it over here. That's one way. There's the popular fields that people use are obviously the text field, because it's an alphanumeric field that captures any kind of information. People use the date field to capture dates. Dates are pretty easy to capture here. You have the ability to capture time, but you can turn that off if you need to. You can format it however you want. We usually end up formatting it in a month, day, and year format. And this is all stuff that I go into in more detail when we actually do form training with you.
So Josh, one of the questions I get asked pretty often is, I mean, can we set up validations and logics, like, don't let, if you answer this, then next answer could be that. I think those are some of the things that are pretty important to some of the customers.
We can absolutely, we can do conditional formatting where we set up basically one field is either hidden or shown based on an answer to another field. We can hide entire sections based on something. We can make answers appear. We can have one subset of answers that appear for one situation and appear differently for another one. So we can do that through conditional formatting. We absolutely can, yes. Does anybody have any other questions about what you would use a form for, or how it would be filled out in regard to how your organization works? No, I'm not seeing any other questions pop up here. The forms are used all over the program. They're used with the case board. They're used sometimes on the intake form. They're used they're using a variety of the programs that we offer through attendance and scheduling and stuff like that. I think that's some stuff that Brian can get into and show you when he shows you that piece, show you how to attach forms there. If I did mention before, forms can be sent out externally and filled out and sent back into the system. And it brings
How
it
about, I
in,
mean,
links
I
to the
think we can
case.
also apply APIs, right, Josh, to from different, say, from intake. So we capture
One of the
yeah, go ahead, please.
one of the things that we are moving to be a standard in the system is that we are going to make it so that when you fill out your intake, it will automatically link to the forms, so that any information collected on your intake form will automatically populate in your what we call a my form. The my forms are the forms that are separate from the intake. So if I'm filling out a form in the system that is asking information like name, address, stuff like that, on the screen here, you can see where you're collecting client name and some things like this that are already been collected on the intake. Instead of having to fill that stuff out again through APIs, we can pre-populate that stuff so that it's not, you don't have to go through and enter it all again. And that's not limited to just demographic information. We can bring over anything that's collected in the intake form. So if there's a set of data that's being collected on the intake form that's not demographic related, it can still be populated in a form later on. If it's not a one-to-one relationship, we work with the client to develop the mapping that says, you know, this form on the intake needs to populate this form on this particular form over here. Is there anything else that I've missed to go over here? I think that about covers it for the forms.
Yeah, sure. I think if any questions come in, then we can address those. So
Yeah.
we can pass on to Brian, and Brian can focus on the other pieces, donors and grants and so forth. And then in the meantime, we have any questions, we can address those.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen here so you all can see. We're going to start off talking about grants. So let me go ahead and switch this over for you. And make sure, okay, can everybody see my screen okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. So what we're going to start off talking about here are grants. So we call this grants because that's what it's most often used for, but in actuality, you can use this section of PlanStreet to track any sort of monetary pool that you have that you want to track when amounts were dispersed, who were they dispersed to, you know, anything of that nature. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a grant. It could also be, you know, a friend of the program or something, somebody that's giving you all a donation or something. You want to track how that money is spent. So from your PlanStreet system here in donors, when we click here, just to show you how I got here, there's another tab here for grants. So once we go into grants, this will show you the screen that we're already on. And you can go in here and add any sort of grant that you want. And in here, you have the ability, once it's added, you can put in, you know, the amount that you received, the date that it came in. If you want to track the payment type, you can. And you'll notice also the system is tracking disbursements, how much is remaining, and when you got it as well. And within each one of these, if I go and click on it, it will give me the details for that specific thing. So here you can see Adam Clark, which is one of the cases. There was $500 distributed, and it was given to the program for disability, and the activity was income. And that was distributed on 12/8. So you can go through and track how money is being used as it goes. So where does this information come from? It comes from the client's individual case. So over here, I'm looking at Aaron Hudson, and we're going to go and look at their case board. And when we come into their case board, we can see these are all the programs that they have. And let's see, let's go for this nutritional food to help fight AIDS. So we open this up. We're going to edit this card. And so now we can see in here, I can go in here and select the grants. Let's say I say it's food relief. It already tells me that there's this amount remaining in the grant. So if I were to use this whole amount, then going forward, this wouldn't show up. So once the system tracks down to 0, then that grant is no longer available for you to select because you've used all the money. So I could just come in here and say, okay, from this, we're going to use, $300 of it. So I go and type that in, then I come down here and I'm going to save that information. And then when I go back over to the grants, let me go to the main screen here. So food relief, and then refresh my screen. Then open that up, and then you can see here's Aaron Hudson under the personal growth and nutrition to fight AIDS, the $300 distribution today. So the grant thing is very helpful for people when they want to track where the money's going that's come in for them to help. And you can also take this and export this out as a PDF or an Excel if you need to do some further manipulation with it, or if you wanted to, build some sort of a report to show people how the money was being used. So if there's any questions on grants, I can answer those now if somebody has anything. And if not, we can move on to talking about the scheduler. So let's go over and take a look at the schedule. This is this icon right here for my schedule. This basically functions as a shared calendar. So within here, if my calendar was being shared with individuals, I can come over here and select those contacts and I can see their schedule. I can also go into my settings here and I can go in and I can select members of my team, and I can come in and ask them, I want to either show them that when I'm free and busy, or they can see all my event details. And I'm going to either invite them to look at my calendar, or I'm going to request that they share theirs. I'm sure most people are familiar with the functionality of the shared calendar. So it gives you the ability to go in to PlanStreet. You can see what your colleagues are doing. You can see what appointments they have. If you want to schedule an appointment or a meeting with them, you simply go over here to add. Again, very similar controls: start and end date, invite the attendees. If you want to attach documents or forms, you can do that. If you want to set a reminder for it, you can set your interval. And then, if it's 5 minutes before the meeting, 5 hours before the meeting, or you want a notification 5 days, you have that ability to do that. You can also select if it's going to be something that's going to repeat. Invite or reminders go out in 2 ways. They do go out through email, but they can also go out through SMS. So if you do enable text messaging within the system, you can get those as well. So if, some clients, it's easier to reach by cell phone, it seems, as opposed to just regular email. So you have that ability within the system for the scheduler. This is also available in the client portal. So if clients are logging into the system, you can expose this calendar and share calendars with them as well. Give them permissions to view the calendar. You can give them permissions to set up appointments with you, like they could book their own sessions or something if they needed to. All that's completely controllable within the system for permissions. That's really about all there is for the scheduler. And, like I said, it's, if you're familiar with shared calendar tools, then, this will be very, very easy to use and pretty straightforward. This question here: can we make changes specifically for our program, like color coding and appointment? Currently, I don't believe that there's any color coding within the system on. You might want to address that if you have any other insights on that.
Doesn't exist, but we're launching a new version in January that will have we're updating the calendar control, and that would have color coding options and be able to set up your own colors based on programs, people, and so forth.
Okay.
We're also merging our calendar with the case board, so you'll be able to set up program activities on the case board and then kind of merge them with appointments as well.
Okay. Are there any other questions around the calendar before the next thing I'm going to move on to is attendance? Okay. So let's talk about attendance. So in our system, you have the ability to track the attendance for whether they're classes that you're offering or weekly meetings, counseling sessions, anything that you want to track attendance to. And the way that this works is it's driven from your case template. You add the activity cards in there, you add the topics in there, which are your classes, and then you can come here to this attendance module, which is the screen that you see here. And so you have the ability in here. There's several classes here that have already been created. So I'll just kind of go through one of these as an example. So let's look at the boat skills. So this is the name of the topic itself. So if we go in here and look, we can see that Peter Rabbit is enrolled in boat skills. And if we go down and look at electric repairs, we've got Christina Smith and Bridget Jones. And then if we go and look at group counseling, we got one person in there. Group therapy's got one person. And so what you can do here is track the attendance. So let's say on Monday, Peter Rabbit shows up for boat skills. What I see most clients doing is simply a 1 or a 0, so that they were either present or they weren't. But this was originally designed to track the amount of time. So if you were wanting to track the amount of hours that were spent per day in that particular class, topic, session, whatever it might be, you have that ability as well. You can track hours and minutes in here. And you just continue to do that over time. And then you just go to like the next week. You can go in and continue to fill out the attendance. At the end, if you needed to do a report or anything, this is exportable to Excel. If you needed to take a look at a particular class, for example, there is filtering up at the top, so you can go over here and filter down and say, I just want to see a particular activity, or I just want to see a particular topic or particular client, whatever that might be. Another option that you also have here when you're looking at the individuals is posting a comment to the people in the group or posting a comment to the individual. And so if I were to go in here, I could go in and post a comment on here, and this would show up inside Peter Rabbit's case under the boat attendance activity card. So that way, caseworkers or instructors can post things, case managers can come in, they can review the case, they can go in and see how Peter Rabbit's doing in whatever session or whatever class he might be attending. You also have the ability to go and enroll. So if I were to take and start a new class, for example, I would come in here and I would select the activity card. So let's just say we were doing like group, I think group counseling's already there. Like the instructor. So if I was the one that was running that class or session, for example, I would just assign it as myself. And then here's the topics I would go through and select. It doesn't look like there's any attached to this particular activity. Let me see if I can find a different one. Okay, so group counseling, I'm the instructor for that. And the class is called group counseling. So I could just select that as well. And then down here is where I can go in. I can either put everybody, this is a list of all your active cases. I can either go down and select everybody into it, or I can go through and just select the individual people that I want to be in that class. And then when I save that, that class shows up. Let's see where I put it. And you can go in and see, here's the people that are in that one. And then I can go through just like anything else. I can go through and make comments. I can track my attendance for that class going forward. And then at the end of it, when it's done, I can export it to Excel and get a direct count of how many times people attended and things like that. Are there any questions regarding the attendance module and how it's used? No? Okay. Okay, so now that we've kind of looked at the grants, we've looked at the scheduling, we've looked at attendance, let's take a brief overview of actual reporting itself. So reporting is accessed over here from this left menu. It opens up to a screen like this. You do have the ability to, when you create reports, you can pin them to your dashboard. You can pin graph reports or matrix reports. Just by selecting the category, you can go in and see the reports that have already been created in the past. You can open them up, take a look at them. If you need to email them to someone, you have that ability as well. But we're going to look at creating a report. And I'm going to focus on the matrix because that seems to be one of the more popular reports that we use. And again, this is a test system, so I'm not 100% sure how much stuff is filled out in here, but we're going to start off by looking at our clients. And then I'm going to pick, because I know there's a couple in here, like I know Aaron Hudson, because I've used that one before. And I believe this one has information on it as well. And then from the main column, and this is like from your client detail section, I'm just going to go through here and let's just say I want their first name and their last name. And then from their actual intake that they filled out, I'm going to look at a couple of things. Let's look at, I believe marital status was in here. So I'm going to select marital status. And then I'm also going to go in here and I'm going to search for, I know that there was blood pressure was in here. So I'm just going to click here and let's search for blood pressure. So high blood pressure. Yep. So those are the two things I want from the intake. And I'm just going to go down here. I'm not going to do any other comparisons. I'm just going to create a very basic report here. So then when I create this report, you can see that we get, okay, so we've got Aaron and we've got Abby, first name, last name. We scroll over here. So we've got one that's married, one that's divorced. We've got one that has high blood pressure and one that doesn't. So in your reporting, you have the ability to go in and add comparison objects, and you also have the ability to go in and do where clauses. So let's say, you know, this was a list of 100 people, and I really just want to see the ones that said that do have high blood pressure. I could come in here and say where, and I'm going to say high blood pressure is equal to, and then I'm looking for yes. So let's do that. We'll create this report. And you see it got rid of the person that had no. So now I just have a list of people in the system that have high blood pressure. I could go forward with this. I could add another where clause and say, I want to see people that have high blood pressure that are married or have high blood pressure and are divorced, you know, whatever type of criteria that I've selected up in the report, I can come down here and start filtering it out with statements. And you have a lot of operators here. You can do equal than, greater than, you can do date ranges. You can do like, you can do, you know, any number of things that you need to try to drill down and filter your report. And then once you're done with it, you have the ability to either pin it to the dashboard like you saw earlier, or I can come in here and I can export this as a PDF, or again, I can export it to Excel. And, you know, take it if I need to bring it into another tool or do some other calculations or something with it. There is appearance formatting in here as well. So you can go over to the appearance section and give your report a title. You can, you know, obviously if you want to have a certain logo or something, you can do that. Set the font size, type size, things like that. If you want a footer or text graphic. So, you know, you can format the report, then you can generate the report, and then you can pin it or export it. And this is true for the intake. You can do report against forms. So any of the forms in the system that have been filled out, like you do a survey to all your clients and you say, I want to know how many people answered yes to question number 6. You know, you can go in and do that kind of reporting out of the forms. You can also go and say, you know, I want to know how many times this particular activity card has been used in a case, or show me how many programs, you know, each person has. any of those types of things, the system can report out of. So pretty much anything that goes in to the system is a reportable variable. So does anybody have any questions about the reporting aspect or abilities? Okay, doesn't seem like we do. So I've either bored you to death or I'm a very good explainer. But regardless, if you do have any questions, you can always reach out to us for any of those. We're happy to answer those, and we're happy to help. I don't have anything else.
Right.
As
So
far
I
as
think
modules go.
a couple of new things that we have brought in the system. We just want to mention that, and we'll be conducting more webinars around that. So we have a client portal that was launched a while back, and we also have an agency portal that we have launched. Some of these things are available out of the box, free of cost, and some have additional charges. And we also are launching Power BI, which is our analytical tool embedded within the application itself. So if you are interested in looking at how Power BI would work in our application and how you can benefit from that, do register for our webinar that will take place next week, next Thursday. But Power BI is going to be, if you can see my screen, will be available as on the dashboard tab on the top. Once it's available for all the customers, and you can just go in and set up your own. So this is going to be our new reporting tool where you can go in and set up your own visualizations. You have filters. You have a lot of flexibility to do that, a lot more functionality than our current reporting tool. You can just set up, go in and do basic filtering, advanced filtering, a lot of where clauses, different options, different drill downs, and so forth. You can use all the extensive delivered capability of Microsoft's analytical tool. This would be available initially as a trial for all the customers. And then if you like it, and we can talk about the subscription and so forth, but this would be embedded within the application. And as we go along, this would become our primary reporting and analytics platform for all our customers. So you can basically, the way it works is you can go in and select your columns from here. And as you select them, different fields and options show up on that report. And then you can enlarge that report, you can save it, create multiple dashboards. You can share them internally, externally, and you can basically publish them even on your websites and so forth. If any data needs to be brought in from here. So these are a few things that we're going to be elaborating more on in our upcoming webinars. So we'll share the schedule of our webinars with all the customers and the prospects. So feel free to attend them if you have interest or any questions related to that. So whatever you saw today, if you have any questions, concerns, or anything, feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at support@planstreetinc.com, or you can reach out to us individually as well. Okay. Thank you very much for your time, and let us know if you have any questions. If not, then we look forward to hear from you in the next webinar.